One night, as she prepared dinner for the family, she made a reckless decision. This time, she added the sedative not only to Kola's meal, but also to her mother's. She needed both of them out of the way so she could act without interruption. After dinner, both Adebimpe and Kola fell into a deep sleep almost immediately, unaware of the extra dose Dara had slipped into their food. Dara waited until the house was quiet before making her way to her stepfather's bedroom. Her heart pounded in her chest as she slipped into the room, her mind racing with excitement, but fate had other plans. Just as Dara was about to leave Kola's bed, satisfied and fulfilled, Adebimpe unexpectedly woke up. She staggered into the bedroom, her eyes struggling to focus in the dim light. As she took in the scene before her, a wave of disbelief and horror washed over her. There, on her matrimonial bed, was her daughter Dara with her husband Kola. Adebimpe screamed, the sound piercing through the silence of the night. She stumbled backward, clutching the door frame for support. "What? What are you doing?" she cried, her voice trembling with shock. Dara turned to face her mother, her expression defiant. "Exactly what it looks like," she said, her voice cold and unapologetic. "What?" Adebimpe's voice cracked, unable to comprehend what she was saying. "You're sleeping with your father? Are you insane?" Dara shrugged, unfazed by her mother's outburst. "I'm not crazy, Mom," she replied, her tone eerily calm. "I love him." Adebimpe's words shattered in an instant. The betrayal, the disgust, the pain. It was too much to bear. Tears streamed down her face as she rushed to the bed, shaking Kola, who remained unconscious. She frantically checked his pulse, her heart racing in fear. He was alive, but barely responsive. Realizing that something was terribly wrong, Adebimpe rushed Kola to the hospital, where doctors revealed that he had been under the influence of sedatives, which caused him severe weakness. The truth of what Dara had been doing slowly unraveled, leaving Adebimpe devastated. She couldn't believe that her own daughter, the child she had raised with so much love and sacrifice, could do something so heinous. The house was no longer a home. The warmth and love that once filled the walls had been replaced by an icy tension that hung over everyone like a dark cloud. Kola, now fully aware of what had happened, was a broken man, his mind reeled with anger, disgust, and confusion. How could this have happened under his own roof? How had he not seen the signs? He had always prided himself on being a loving and attentive husband and father, yet here he was, the victim of a twisted betrayal by the very person he had treated as his own daughter. His anger was palpable, his calm demeanor shattered as he lashed out. Kola's anger was like nothing Adebimpe had ever seen. He had always been calm, rational, and loving, but now there was a fire in his eyes that scared him. For the first time in their marriage, he seemed unreachable. "I cannot believe this," he said, pacing their living room. His voice trembled with fury as he clenched his fist. "How could she? How could Dara do this? I thought of her as my daughter." Adebimpe sat on the couch, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. She didn't have any answers. She had never imagined that the daughter she had raised with so much love and sacrifice could commit such an unforgivable act. The part of her still struggled to accept what had happened. It felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. "Kola, please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. I never saw this coming." Kola stopped pacing and turned to face his wife, his expression a mix of anger and sorrow. "Do you know how humiliating this is for me? How can I ever face the world if people find out? My friends, people, what will they think?" Adebimpe's heart broke for him. She knew Kola felt betrayed and she could see the hurt in his eyes. But she also felt trapped between her love for her husband and her maternal instinct for Dara. She had only one child, her daughter, her blood, and now she had to decide what to do. "I don't know what to do," Adebimpe whispered. "She's still my daughter, but How can we live under the same roof after this? The house, once full of laughter and joy, was now cold and silent. Dara, despite her twisted actions, showed no remorse. She refused to apologize, continuing to express her bizarre and disturbing love for Kola. Her boldness only further enraged Kola, who began to isolate himself from both women. Adebimpe made several attempts to talk to Dara, hoping to understand what had caused her to behave in such a monstrous way. "Dara, what happened to you?" she asked one afternoon, her voice thick with desperation. "How could you do this to your family?" Dara's eyes were cold as she replied, "I love him, Mom." Adebimpe's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't believe her ears. "Love? He's your father. You've betrayed everything I've taught you. Don't act like you've never wanted something you couldn't have." Dara snapped back. "I don't care what you think. He's the only man I've ever truly wanted, and I won't apologize for it." It was that moment Adebimpe realized there was no reasoning with her daughter. The child she had raised was gone, replaced by someone who had lost all sense of right and wrong. With a heavy heart, Adebimpe made the toughest decision of her life. She could no longer tolerate Dara's presence in the house, not when the tension was eating away at what little was left of their family. "Pack your things and leave," Adebimpe said, her voice low but firm. "I cannot let you stay here any longer." Dara sneered, showing no sign of regret as she packed her bags and left the house. In the days that followed Dara's departure, Kola and Adebimpe struggled to restore a sense of normalcy in their home, but the damage had been done. Kola remained distant, haunted by what had happened. Adebimpe felt helpless, unable to bridge the gap that had formed between them. Dara went to stay with her friend Lola, but even though she was physically away from Kola, her obsession with him grew stronger. She couldn't stop thinking about him, about the night they had shared, and how she longed to be with him again. Her mind was consumed with thoughts of her stepfather, and the distance only intensified her desire. One afternoon, sitting in Lola's small apartment, Dara decided she couldn't keep her feelings bottled up any longer. She picked up her phone, her hands shaking with a mix of excitement and fear. Her heart raced as she opened her messaging app and began typing. "I miss you so much," she wrote in the first message. "I think about you all the time. I can't stop remembering our moments together." Dara hesitated for a moment, staring at the screen. A part of her knew this was wrong, that Kola had never willingly participated in what had happened. But her obsession clouded her judgment. She convinced herself that Kola felt the same way, that he was just too afraid to admit it. She continued typing, her messages becoming bolder and more intimate. "I love you in ways I can't even explain. No one else makes me feel the way you do. I know we are meant to be together, even if no one understands." For hours, she sent message after message, confessing her feelings for him. Her words grew more desperate, pleading for him to acknowledge her love. Each time Kola's phone buzzed, he felt his stomach churn with dread. He couldn't believe what he was reading. Kola didn't respond to any of her messages. At first, he tried to ignore them, hoping that Dara would stop. But as the texts continued to pour in, he knew he couldn't keep this to himself. His anger fled each time he read Dara's confessions. But beneath the anger was a sense of helplessness. How had things spiraled so far out of control? He was also deeply conflicted about what next to do. On one hand, Dara was not his biological daughter, and the law was clear. If he reported her behavior to the authorities, she could face severe consequences. But on the other hand, he feared the backlash that could come from exposing what had happened. People might say he had led her on, that he had taken advantage of his position as a stepfather. He didn't want her to be painted as a villain, especially in such a sensitive situation. That evening, Kola returned home from work and showed Adebimpe the messages. Her face paled as she scrolled through Dara's disturbing confessions. This is madness," she whispered, her voice trembling. She looked up at Kola, her eyes wide with confusion and anger. "Is she mad?" "Maybe we take her to the hospital for a mental evaluation," Kola replied. But Adebimpe knew this wasn't a mental case. She felt there must be something. "I don't think this is a mental issue, my dear. This doesn't seem medical. It's strange. She replied, what do we do then? Maybe we should report her. Kola shook his head, his frustration evident. If I go to the police, it will be a scandal. They will twist the story and everyone will think it's because she's not my biological child. But I can't just let this go on. Adebimpe slumped back into the couch, her mind racing. How had her daughter come to this point? What had possessed her to act this way? She felt a deep, overwhelming sadness, as though the daughter she had raised was a stranger now. We have to think this through carefully, Kola said, his voice steady but filled with tension. We can't let her destroy everything we've built. Adebimpe nodded, but deep down, she knew that the situation was far beyond anything they could handle on their own. Something darker was at play here, something they couldn't explain. That night, Adebimpe lay awake, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that Dara's behavior was connected to something much larger than just an obsession. The more she thought about it, the more confused she became. Then something strange began to happen. One night, Kola woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. He had had a vivid dream, one that felt more real than anything he had ever experienced. In the dream, he saw a woman, Adebimpe's mother. She stood in the doorway of their bedroom, staring at him with accusing eyes. I am not dead, she said in the dream. I am still alive. Kola jolted awake, gasping for air. He turned to Adebimpe, who was still asleep beside him. Oblivious to his distress, he shook her awake, his heart racing. Adebimpe, he whispered urgently. I thought you said your mother was dead. Adebimpe blinked, confused and still half asleep. She is dead, Kola. She's been gone for over a decade. Why would you ask such a thing? I saw her, Kola said, his voice shaking. In my dream. She said she's not dead. She's still alive. Adebimpe sat up, alarmed by the fear in his voice. What are you talking about? It was just a dream. But the dream wouldn't go away. Night after night, Kola had the same vision. Adebimpe's mother standing in the doorway, repeating the same words. Each time, her presence felt more menacing. Kola couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As the dreams persisted, Kola shared them with Adebimpe. At first, she dismissed them as stress-induced nightmares. But as the dreams continued, she began to worry. What if there was something more to these visions? What if her mother's spirit was trying to communicate with them? We need help, Kola said gravely. There's something wrong. Desperate to make sense of the nightmare their lives had become, they sought the help of a well-known spiritualist, an old woman renowned for her accuracy in spiritual matters. They explained the strange occurrences, the disturbing dreams, Dara's behavior, and the tension that had overwhelmed their home. The spiritualist listened quietly, her eyes narrowing in concentration as they spoke. When they finished, the room fell silent as they waited for the woman's response. The spiritualist took a deep breath before speaking. What you are experiencing is the result of a curse, one that was placed on Adebimpe many years ago. Adebimpe's heart sank. A curse? She had never fully believed in such things, but the weight of the spiritualist's words sent a chill down her spine. She exchanged a worried glance with Kola, who sat in tense silence. The spiritualist continued, her voice grave. Your mother placed this curse on you when you were a teenager, after you became pregnant with Dara. Her anger and disappointment over what she perceived as your betrayal gave birth to this curse. She had hoped you would be the pillar of her life, her pride, especially after the struggles she endured raising you alone following your father's death. But when you got pregnant, she felt that you had repaid all her efforts with shame. Adebimpe's mind raced as memories of her mother's harsh words flooded back. She had never imagined those words would carry such a terrible weight. Her mother's disappointment had been palpable, but Adebimpe had thought the anger would fade with time. Out of her frustration and pain, the spiritualist said, Your mother carelessly cursed you. She spoke words that she never realized would become powerful because of the moments of her intense emotion. She said you would never enjoy the fruits of your labor and that you would see the same shame you brought upon her. These words were spoken in anger, but they were sealed by the forces of the air, and they have remained alive in your life since. Adebimpe's chest tightened as the truth settled in. So, this curse has been with me all along? she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, the spiritualist replied. Your mother may not have meant for the curse to last, but her pain and bitterness gave it strength. The curse has followed you, and now it is manifesting through Dara. Kola, who had been listening intently, finally spoke. And the dreams I've been having? The visions of her mother saying she's still alive? The dream is a manifestation of the spirit of the curse. The spiritualist explained. Your wife's mother's spirit is not truly alive, but the curse she placed is still alive. Her spirit is connected to this curse, and that's why you keep seeing her in your dreams. It's a warning that the curse is alive and thriving in Dara's life. Adebimpe and Kola were stunned, overwhelmed by the weight of the revelation. It all made sense now. Dara's unnatural behavior, the tension in their home, and Kola's haunting dreams. The curse had turned their lives upside down, twisting everything into chaos. What can we do? Adebimpe asked, her voice filled with desperation. How can we break this curse? Please, help us. The spiritualist looked at her with compassion. The curse can be broken. I will perform a series of sacred rituals for you, Adebimpe. These rituals will cleanse you from the curse that your mother placed upon you and free your daughter from the darkness that had overtaken her. The next 7 days were a test of endurance and faith for Adebimpe. Each day, she and Kola returned to the spiritualist where the old woman performed sacred rituals to break the curse. The rituals were intense and physically exhausting for Adebimpe, as she had to confront not only the curse, but also the pain it had caused them. The spiritualist prayed fervently for 7 days, chanting ancient words meant to purify Adebimpe's spirit and release the hold the curse had on her. Each day, the rituals grew more intense, involving the burning of herbs, sacred baths, and meditative prayers. The spiritualist reminded Adebimpe that curses, especially those tied to deep emotional wounds and blood-related, required time to fully unravel. As the days passed, Kola noticed a shift in the atmosphere of their home. The heaviness that had hung over them like a dark cloud began to lift. He no longer had the terrifying dreams of Adebimpe's mother standing in the doorway, and the oppressive sense of doom that had followed them started to fade. On the 7th and final day of the ritual, the spiritualist gathered Adebimpe and Kola at the altar. The curse has been broken. You are free now, Adebimpe, and so is your daughter. The curse no longer has power over you two. Adebimpe wept with relief, feeling lighter than she had in years. The emotional burden she had carried since her teenage years seemed to dissolve. For the first time, she felt a sense of peace and freedom. With the curse broken, Kola and Adebimpe returned home, hopeful but unsure of what would come next. The tension that had once filled their home was gone. 2 days after the final ritual, there was a knock at the door. Adebimpe opened it to find Dara standing on the doorstep, tears streaming down her face. She looked different, softer, broken by the weight of her actions. Her defiant attitude was gone, replaced by a deep sorrow and regret. I'm sorry, Dara whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know what came over me. I've hurt you both so much, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I needed to apologize. Adebimpe stared at her daughter. For a moment, her heart turned between relief and pain. She could see the sincerity in Dara's eyes. The cause that had once controlled her was gone. Dara's apology was genuine, and Adebimpe could feel the change in her. She reached out and pulled Dara into a hug, both of them crying together. It's okay, Adebimpe whispered, her voice filled with love. We will get through this. Kola stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. His heart too was heavy with conflicting emotions. He had been deeply hurt by Dara's actions, but seeing her now, vulnerable and remorseful, stirred something inside him. Though the healing process would take time, he knew that this was the first step. The days that followed were filled with cautious reconciliation. Dara's apology had been heartfelt, but the scars of her actions still lingered. Kola, still struggling with the memory of what had transpired, took time to fully forgive. Although he could never forget the betrayal, he acknowledged that Dara had been under the influence of a powerful curse, something beyond her control. His love for Adebimpe and the desire to see their family restored pushed him towards forgiveness, even though the road was long and complicated. Adebimpe, on the other hand, worked tirelessly to keep the family together. The guilt she felt for the role her mother's cause had played weighed heavily on her heart, but she refused to let it destroy her. She vowed never to allow anger or resentment to control her actions. She spoke with Dara frequently, listening without judgment, offering the unconditional love she had always given her daughter. In many ways, Adebimpe felt that breaking the curse had not only saved Dara but had also saved herself from the bitterness of her past. The house, once filled with tension and distrust, began to feel warm again. The atmosphere shifted from coldness to tentative kindness. Kola, Adebimpe, and Dara shared more meals together, slowly rebuilding the connections they had lost. There were still moments of awkwardness, but over time, the laughter began to return. Kola's disturbing dreams had stopped completely. With the curse broken, the lingering presence of Adebimpe's mother vanished and peace returned to their home. However, the ordeal left the family more spiritually aware. They realized that curses, even if spoken in anger, had power, especially when left unchecked. Though the road to recovery was long, Dara found strength in her renewed sense of self, and she embraced the chance for a fresh start. The love she once misdirected towards Kola faded, replaced with a healthy love a daughter should feel towards a father. Her focus shifted towards her future, her dreams, and building her life beyond the trauma of the past. Kola and Adebimpe's relationship was not entirely free of scars, but their shared ordeal had deepened their bond. They had been tested in ways they never thought possible, but they emerged stronger, more connected by the love they shared. Kola, who had once been consumed with anger, now found solace in the fact that his family had not been broken beyond repair. Together, they had faced darkness and emerged into the light, ready to rebuild and move forward. As a family, they began to move forward, slowly but surely. The curse had nearly destroyed them, but in breaking it, they found a path towards healing. If you enjoyed this story, you will definitely love the next one. Click to watch it now. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.